Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ameena Zia. I am the founder of Blue Ridge Impact Consulting. I am also serving as an adjunct professor at Virginia Tech University this semester. And with my consulting firm, we are a social impact firm working across private and public sectors to ensure that there is a stakeholder approach to development. I have been engaged at the United Nations civil society space since before the global goals were adopted in 2015 by over 180 world leaders as the framework, as the guiding tool to help achieve sustainable development. I'm very excited that we're here together as a community and that we continue to recognize that there is a need for us to continue discussions and dialogues around the future of new approaches to human development and the role that innovation, technology play in our journey. And today's lecture is part of the Blue Ridge Impact Consulting Speaker Series, which is part of our firm's commitment to sustainable development as part of the Global Partnership for Development, and also as part of the world's largest lesson, which is in partnership with UNICEF and UNESCO. Our lecture is open to public because our commitment to creating access to knowledge, information, and networks exists. And our audience in attendance today include Virginia Tech University's Political Science and International Studies class, Select World Problems. Also, we have the United Nations Experiential Fellows, which are also part of the Blue Ridge Impact Consulting's commitment to sustainable development. And also our friends of sustainable development from around the globe are joining us. I'm very excited about our discussion today because it is around a topic that is of great relevance to us today as individuals, as a society, and of course, as a global community. The understanding of the role of multilateral cooperation through the lens of human development. And for that, we have Mr. Robertson Work joining us today in our discussion as he will introduce the concepts of reinventing society and empowering action that is compassionate for self and for others, in trying to understand world complexities, in trying to understand truths and challenges that we all face. We will be in discussion regarding his latest book, Society, Spirit, and Self. This book right here, which is an invitation to all to join in creating a future where we transform our communities and we transform our nations. The format I would like to point out for today's discussion will begin with Mr. Work sharing his thoughts on where we find ourselves as a global communities today. His book in regards to systems and processes, and also then I will present Mr. Work with a couple of questions that our audience have submitted during the registration process for the event. And after the questions, we will give Mr. Work the opportunity to ask student questions and also open the floor for questioning in real time through our chat box. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce Mr. Robertson Work. Mr. Robertson Work is the author of Society, Spirit, and Self, Essays on the One Dance. As an author and an activist, Robertson Work serves people and the planet and calls others to join in catalyzing compassionate ecological communities in organizations, nations, and global society. Having worked in over 50 countries for over 50 years, he has a slew of experience. He was a UNDP principal policy advisor of decentralized governance. He has served as the NYU Wagner Graduate School of Public Service Adjunct Professor of Innovative Leadership and the Institute of Cultural Affairs Executive Director in 4 countries, conducting organizational, community, and leadership development initiatives. He has published 3 books and contributed to 11 others. Mr. Work, at this point, I would like to yield the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Ameena. Delighted to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm always impressed with what you do, and this is a great way to you teach your class. I wish you well as a professor. I know that it will go well, and so I want to greet everyone here. I see your names. I don't see your pictures. Will you show yourself at some point? I invite you to share your image, because since we're not in the same room, it's helpful, if we can at least see each other online. And some people are appearing now. It's good to see you. Yes, so I'm delighted to be with your class, and there might even be people beyond your class, as Ameena said, some of the fellows, some of the UN experiential fellows, and I've been very happy to be an advisor with that group. That's always very interesting. And I wonder if there's anyone outside the class or outside the fellows. Do we know? And
They may be joining us in a few minutes.
okay, and whatever, it's fine. But the important thing is the class, and I now see 3 of you. The rest of you are being very subtle. Hi, good to see you all. So here we are, and I'm wondering where you are. I'm in North Carolina. I think Ameena's in North Carolina. Some of you are in. How many are in Virginia? Any people in Virginia? Yeah. Anyone outside of Virginia? Yeah. Anyone else in other countries? Anyone outside the U.S.? I know one colleague from Taiwan said he was joining. I don't know if he has made it yet, but he had said he would be joining from Taiwan. I'm not quite clear what time it is in Taiwan, but anyway, he's used to this. He's doing a lot of online facilitation. But so I'm wondering how you took care of yourself before you came to this event. You know, we're in very challenging times, that's not a new idea or concept. And so very important to take care of yourself. I hope you take good care of yourself. Before this event, I did my exercise, physical exercise, my meditation, my walking, my writing, my reflection. So I hope you each will continue to take good care of yourself. You're needed for a long time. So we're counting on you. We're counting on you in every way at this moment of crisis and possibility. And that's what I want to talk about. Then I really am anxious for you to speak and your questions. When I taught graduate school at NYU, I use a facilitative approach. So I ask a lot of questions. So in fact, I would never just start talking without asking questions. So I'd like to ask you one question before I say much more. And that is, any of you, what would you like to have happen in this hour? Anybody?
I don't know, tell us more about your experience at NYU and what you can, tell us now.
Okay, so that's one thing. Thank you very much, Marielis.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? What would you like to have happen in this hour?
Oh, first off, I'd like to apologize for the background noise. I'm in a library, so I don't know what I'd like to have. I just like to have another perspective on world issues, what's happening on the world, and just the more perspectives I can gather, the better, the way I see it.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you. Yes. So, thank you, and I will address both of those in our. Before I say, I want to ask one more question, and you don't have to answer this. I just want you to be thinking about it because it's such a big, big question. Imagine that it's 2050. It's now 2050 on planet Earth. What are your greatest hopes and dreams for humanity and life on Earth in 2050? Just think about that a moment. 2050. Your greatest hopes and dreams. You hope for what? Your dream for what? Okay, well, let me say a few words before Ameena asks other questions, and then you ask your questions. And I see someone here is saying there's someone from Nigeria online and someone from Jordan. So welcome, Nigeria and Jordan. Very good. Okay. So yes, I believe that we live in the most critical moment in human history. you may or may not agree with me. But as I have analyzed where we are, and as I've written about it, reflected on it, taught about it, spoken about it, I believe this is it. You and I are at the most critical moment in human history. Everything is at stake. Life on Earth is at stake. And what you and I do with our lives is of critical importance. So that's why I'm so concerned that you take good care of yourself. As I said, that we're counting on you. Because in this moment, we're not only bombarded by climate chaos and ecocide, but misogyny and patriarchy and systemic poverty, systemic racism, perpetual warfare, fascism. You know, all these things are our world. Of course, there's a lot else going on as well, but these are what I call some of the major crises that are interlinked that we must pay attention to and respond to. So that's why I'm so happy that you're in this class with Ameena, looking at world issues and the role of the state, the role of multilateral organizations. In my view, engagement is needed at every level, from community to town, to city, to county, to province, to nation, to international multilateral institutions. So it's all needed. And so I'm counting on you to be engaged in that. Whatever you decide about your career, your profession, or what you really love, or what you want, or what your interests are, I invite you to also be engaged in this moment, this critical moment of human history. That your ideas are needed, your passion, your compassion, your knowledge, your wisdom. So it's been since 2017. I taught at NYU Wagner from 2008 to 2017, loved it, had students from all over the world, taught innovative leadership, sustainable development, management theory, did a lot of facilitation online, with my class in the room. That's when we actually could teach in a room. And but this teaching online has its merit also. You know, more people can join. There's much new possibility that now we can do education online. So I'm all for that. So before I taught at NYU, as Ameena said, I was a decentralized governance policy advisor at UN Development Program, and was able to help prepare our first governance policy for human development. That was in 1997. And our first book on reconceptualizing governance. And then my focus was on participatory governance. So I did a lot of projects around the world on participatory local governance in urban slums and settlements. So that's where I kind of learned, how multilateral organizations such as the UNDP and the UN as a whole can really be of service. When I joined the UN, I was thrilled that I felt like I was a global citizen. Actually, I already felt like a global citizen because I'd been around the world with my nonprofit. I'd been with a nonprofit for 22 years. And we had gone around the world when I was 24 years old. And so I kind of woke up in love with the earth and earthlings. And then at the UN, though, I was able to be an international civil servant. And I was so grateful that I could be that. But I wanted to be honest with you. At first, I was excited and hopeful, but then after 6 or 7 years, I became discouraged in the UN, and I had to recover my vision, recover my passion, and I did. I realized every organization has its weaknesses. Every organization, no organization is perfect. The UN is not perfect. But we need the UN. The UN is essential. Multilateral institutions are essential for getting all the countries. Now 193 countries are talking to each other in the UN, supporting peace and development around the world. Supporting the 193 countries are supporting the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I know I'm sure you're all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but those 17 goals are so so important. So I invite you to really get into what those 17 goals are. If you already haven't, you probably have, but those goals are critical at this moment for all of us. So those are a few things I wanted to say up front about this time of crisis, this time of this critical moment of engagement at every level, the importance of the UN and multilateral dialogue for peace and development. I just wanted to give that overview. So what I am focusing on, and what I invite you to focus on with your life, whatever your career is or your profession, as you develop it, that you work on creating a sustainable environment, gender equality, participatory governance, nonviolence and peace, cultural tolerance, and socioeconomic justice. Those are I invite you to, as I said, whatever you decide to do, whatever your interests are, that you choose at least one of those, that you are giving your thought to, your action, your heart, your life, because everything is at stake. I really mean it, you know? Life on Earth is at stake, and it's critical what you and I do in this moment. So, Ameena, those are a few thoughts I wanted to share up front. Would you like to ask your questions, or shall I keep talking, or what do you want? What would you like?
I can dive right in and guide our discussion in a place where our students have been learning about some of these development issues, if you would like, or I can just give you the floor for some more moments.
Oh, please go ahead, because I have some other questions. When we get to the question part, I have some questions of the students as well. So please go ahead.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Work, you know, so our students are familiar with your book, your recent book, Society, Self, Spirit and Self Essays on the One Dance. And I know that this book, you know, having read it, know that this book is, as I mentioned earlier, an invitation for all of us to understand what our world around us, you know, looks like right now, and what we need to do, what our role and our part is in this global system, this global environment that you speak of. I wanted to mention that on page 7, you quoted, you know, priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin by saying, "The task before us now, if we would not perish, is to shake off our ancient prejudices and to build the earth." And I think that this is so powerful right now, given that the polarized environment that we find ourselves in, and especially our students, especially in the Virginia Tech classes, have been analyzing what poverty cycles look like, analyzing inequities in different dimensions. And so going off of that, you know, on page 21, you mentioned in your book that man participates in the universe of process in its own reflection, self-recreation. I would like to ask you, what advice would you give our students here, especially our undergraduate students, as they are just beginning their exciting journey towards understanding the world, and what role they can play in, and what direction they should take, regardless of, you know, what career paths they choose. And so if you could talk about that for a minute, I'd be very appreciative.
Thank you. Yes. You know, when you asked that question, Ameena, I was reminded when I was an undergraduate, and that was a little while ago, you know, a few years ago, but I was at Oklahoma State University, as I grew up in Oklahoma, and I was at our state university, and I was 18 years old, of course, when I was a freshman, and the whole world opened up. Because suddenly, you know, in my little Oklahoma town of 10,000, I had not met people from all over the world. Suddenly, at university, I met people from Asia and Africa and Latin America and South America and from other religions, not just Christians, Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists. And so it was such a eye-opening experience of the world and other people, other cultures, other religions. So as you, in your undergraduate days at Virginia Tech, I would invite you to learn from different people different from you, different from your family, different from where you grew up, your town, wherever you're from. You may be from a city or a small town or wherever. But I would invite you to seek out people who are different, who look different, speak differently. One person I don't even remember knowing when I was an undergraduate is now a Facebook friend, and she lives in Indonesia. She's Muslim. She converted to Islam, and she became a Sufi, and now she lives in Jakarta, Indonesia, and she and I are Facebook friends. And she's reading my book, and she writes her reflections to me about my book. So it's like it's so amazing to be dialoguing, with this person who I met when I was 20 and she was 18, and we don't even remember exactly, but here we are in our 70s, dialoguing and talking about this world and about what we love and what we care about and what. So that's what can happen from being an undergraduate to being in your 70s. Now there's a lot between 18 and 77, right? So you have a lot. I'm counting. That's why I keep saying I'm counting on you. Because I'm counting on your energy, your vision, your ideas, your passion, that your care for yourself, your care for others, your family, your community, your country, and other countries. So I would invite you as an undergraduate, to really seek out those who are different and learn and listen. And I find that I am still doing that, and social media, I love, we can beat up on Facebook, and I know Facebook makes a lot of mistakes, and I don't love the founder of Facebook is not one of my favorite people, and but Facebook I have 1,000 people I can talk to every day, so I can learn from them, they can learn from me, I can celebrate their life, they can read my books, I can read their books, so social media is giving us the world. And so as I say, we also need, beyond social media, we need real face-to-face and mass-to-mass relations, but I would say that social media is good because a lot of people beat up on social media. So I would just like to say, social media can be negative, but any technology can be negative. I remember when the planes crashed into the World Trade Center, I became aware an airplane was going to take people to vacations or home to their families, suddenly was crashing into the World Trade Center and people were dying. So that airplane, the technology of the airplane could be positive or negative. It could be positive, taking you to your vacation or your home, or it could be negative as a weapon, crashing into a building. So technology is always this way. It could be negative or positive, and technologies always are disruptive. They disrupt human culture, human evolution. So we have to be careful with new cultures, but we also can use new technologies. We to be careful with new technologies, but we can also use them. So that's why I'm really looking forward to your questions, your ideas. I look at you and I think, wow, there you are, and I have a 13-year-old grandson. So I know you're older than that. You're what, 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever you are. But when I'm with my 13-year-old grandson, I think, wow, who is he going to be? What is he going to give? offer? What is his genius? Everyone has a genius. Each of you has your genius. So what I believe is that life is to discover who you are and then to give that gift, discover your gift and give it away. Or I give it away, of course, you need to make a living, but life is more than making a living. I like the people who are now saying we need universal basic income because life isn't just about work. Even though my name is Work, work is important, and I love work. I'm a workaholic, so I love to work, be working, writing, teaching, being active. But life is more than work. You know, that's why be with nature, be with your family, be in meditation, be quiet, love your life. And so I invite you to be on that journey. And I thank you for having the guts to be a youth in this moment in history. Wow. Now, when I was a youth in the 60s, it was also a time of chaos, right? Remember the 60s? You don't remember the 60s, but the 60s was, civil rights and the war in Vietnam. And I mean, it was a wild moment, the 60s. And I was an activist on my campus. And a few years ago, all of us activists from the 60s had a reunion at my university. It was a 50th anniversary reunion of activists. So we all came back to Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma in our 70s. And it was so much fun, you know, seeing people after all this time, because we had been activists on campus and then we had gone out and served in whatever capacities. And then we came back and to see each other and to reunite and to celebrate this life. So I'm just telling these stories about me to let you know that whoever you are, whatever you love, whatever you want to do and be, that it's a big world and you have a big life. And I honor that. I honor your life and I honor who you are.
Thank you. I think we have a couple of questions. You talked about in your book, you mentioned, and I love reading right out of your book because honestly, reading your book is, with a cup of coffee is having a conversation with you there in present. And so I really appreciate that. On page 235, you mentioned in times of chaos and terror, of confusion and suffering, many beings are called to awaken and take compassionate action. And you talk about compassion. And right now, as you mentioned, as we've talked about in our classes, as everyone here knows, we need compassion more than ever in everything and anything that we do. So thank you for pointing that out. And thank you for including compassion in this dialogue and conversation space around development, right? Because a lot of times, compassion gets left out. So thank you for doing that. I see that Marialis has their hand up. So let's take a question from her. Marialis, please go ahead.
So I really admire how you encourage us to take charge of our lives and be aware, be present, so that we can really shape our future and, bring that generational wealth and wealth of culture and love and compassion to, our future. But I have a question about right now, your perspective on how maybe sometimes we are clouded by all the chaos and confusion and negativity, and we project those feelings, maybe even the lack of opportunity to go to classroom in person or whatever, although for us, we were very lucky to be able to do that. What's your perspective on how we project all that onto the masks, because you said there's, positive and negative ways that people can use, any kind of tool or technology. And I'm seeing that there's a lot of rhetoric around this. So what's your perspective?
Thank you. Wow, wise person, wise woman. Great question. Exactly. That's why I invite us to breathe. Right now, let's just breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. And come to this moment in gratitude. I find I keep coming back to gratitude. I'm alive. Wow. You're alive. What a gift. I didn't choose to be alive. I didn't choose to be born. It was a gift. My life is a gift. Your life is a gift. Life itself is a gift. Life on planet Earth is a gift. The sun is a gift. I didn't create the sun. I didn't create the earth. I didn't create air and water and soil and plants and animals. And it's all here. It's all it. So gratitude. I think one way, Maria Ellis, is to practice gratitude, to be thankful for life. And yes, this is a moment of chaos. Our country is divided. The anti-maskers and the maskers, or the anti-vax and the vaxxers, and the leftists and the rightists, or the fascists and the progressives, so we have, and it's hard. So I get disturbed, I get angry, I say, oh, what? Why don't people see it? Why don't they see vaccination is essential? Don't they understand viruses and epidemiology but they say, well, some people don't. They have a different view. They have a different. So how am I patient? So gratitude and patience. So one is gratitude. Second, patience. Third, compassion. Now, compassion, it doesn't just mean to feel nice about somebody. The word compassion, compassion, means with, passion is suffering. So as you know, compassion is to be with suffering. If I'm compassionate for you, Marielis, I will be with your suffering. I will find out what your suffering is. And then what will I do? I will try to relieve your suffering. So compassion is being aware of my suffering and your suffering, but not just being aware, then helping relieve my suffering, helping relieve your suffering. So and some of my family, and neighbors, are maybe anti-vaxxers and I have to understand their values, understand their mind, understand their heart, understand their fears, and then to care for them, what can I do to help relieve their fear, their anxiety, is it possible? Or can I help? Can I be of help? So I think that's why I think compassion is so fundamental, because in your class, you're talking about poverty eradication, right? Poverty alleviation. What is that? That's compassion, to relieve the suffering of the poor, to relieve the suffering of women, relieve the suffering of other species who are dying because of human interaction on our planet, to relieve the suffering of children who can't go to school or who are abused in their families. How do we, so there's so much suffering, you and I suffer so much, and yet we have been given this gift of the capacity to relieve suffering. One way I relieve my suffering is through meditation and contemplation and being present, being conscious, being aware, being forgiving, being grateful. And the same with others. I have, as I said, I have family members who disagree with my views on politics or on world affairs or on religion, and I respect that. I don't agree with them, and I listen and I try to understand, and I try to be helpful and kind and open. But so it's not easy, but it's essential. And I think your question shows that how important it is you can shift your own mind from being negative to positive. And one way is creating a new story. Like I was saying, a friend of mine was here visiting from Chicago, and we were both wearing masks and keeping distance, and we've known each other 50 years. I knew him, and I was telling him I was going to meet with you today. And I said, how can I be helpful? I said, how can I be helpful to these young people? And he said, start with a question. Ask them a question. I thought, well, yes, I love questions. So I ask you a question, right? I ask you, what do you hope to achieve in this hour? And I said, what are your hopes for the year 2050? So I asked you one little question of this hour and one big question about the next 30 years. And then we began to talk. So your mind expanded from this hour to 30 years, you know, and then back. Okay, now we have this hour. Right now, it's 11:37. You know, what can we do? How can we wake up? How can we help each other? How can we learn? How can we grow? How can we help relieve suffering? So I love your question. Thank you, Marielis. And my granddaughter is named Mariela. So I sometimes, when I see Marielis, my granddaughter's only 11, but she is so brilliant and wise and wonderful and beautiful. And so I thank you for your question and thank you for who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, I think our young adults and our youth today is so much more talented and resourceful and knowledgeable than I think ever before. And I think the value of our youth and young people today is just immeasurable. And I think that's also because we find ourselves again at this point in our society where life is different, and it's up to our youth and our young adults where our world goes, right? It's so you guys get to determine the direction, the course of history going forward. And I think that's such a great responsibility, but it's also an exciting moment. I see that we have a question from Liam. Liam, I turn the floor to you.
Yes, it's okay. The group behind me is kind of loud. Can you hear my voice okay?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, do you believe that Trump's election in 2016 was the result of the political, social, and economic environment until then? Or rather, did this political and economic partisanship really start with Trump?
Good question. Thank you. And before I answer that, I just wanted to say how much I agree with Ameena about that, to salute the youth of today, the young people. You're more than you. You're not a youth. You are young adults. But I think one of my heroines is Greta Thunberg. You've heard of Greta Thunberg, the activist. She is one of my great heroines, and I learned from her. She's so wise and courageous, and I'm learning from all the Gretas of this world. But yes, so Liam, yes, I saw fascism comes and goes. You know, there was the fascism of Germany, there's the fascism in Italy, and we have had fascist tendencies in our country for quite a while, you know, and especially in times of chaos, such as our time of chaos. It's easy for people to rise up who say, I am the strong leader, I will save you. If we must gather together, all it's the Germans against the non-Germans, or it's the whites against the non-whites, you know, the Christians against the non-Christians. So the fascists divide and conquer. So I saw this, it wasn't just with this president, the former president. He did not invent this. You know, he did not invent the fear that people have about racism. He did not invent racism. He did not invent xenophobia, fear of the other. He did not invent the fear of other religions and other races and other cultures and other. But he took advantage of it. You know, he was a brilliant communicator who could take advantage of this fear and this anger and this resentment. You know, that why don't those people go away? Those should go back where they came from. You know, the non-Caucasians, the non-Christians, So he took advantage of that. He did not invent it, you know. So that's my response, is that that's been around a long time. In fact, it's been throughout history, that when times of chaos and people are fearful, leaders can rise up to take advantage of that fear and divide people, and to try to just throw out what is not me, you know, if you're not white, if you're not Christian, if you're not. So yes, but that's just my view. You might have another view. I'd like to know your view. What do you think?
Well, I did a little bit of research for this question, and I found an interesting article where since 1994, I forgot who or where they're taking polls of, but they took polls on active participants in the Democratic and Republican Party and non-active participants in those parties too. And they were asked questions about how much they either fear, distrust, or dislike the other party. And the trend since 1994 was that sort of increase in distrust and fear has been steadily rising since 1994, to the point where even prior to Trump's election, that fear was over 50%, especially in the active participants part of the section. So while this fear and everything, Trump certainly didn't invent it. I agree with you there. But I almost feel like there must have been not necessarily a tipping point, but some event that caused the hate to be more prevalent enough for Trump to get in office.
Yes, I agree with you. I think having an African American president offended a lot of people. You know, I think Obama, he was so brilliant and smart, and he was an African American. He wasn't white. You know, so a lot of racists were furious. It's like, what? We can't have a president who is black. This is not America. This is wrong. This is bad. This is. So I think I'm a big supporter of Obama, his election. I helped get out the vote for his election both times. But I think he offended a lot of people and woke them up to their fear and hatred. So it's not just the fear of non-whites, the fear of non-Christians. It's also, I think, some of the element in America of wealth uses these issues. You know, so some of the super wealthy said, if we can get Americans to fight and hate each other, then we can control the country. We can control. And this has been going on, not just since 1994, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You know, when FDR started the New Deal and Social Security, and there were people who said, no, this is wrong. This is bad. You should not give people Social Security. You should not. So I think some of the super rich, not all, there's some very wealthy people who are very who are not greedy and who are kind and generous, but some of the wealthy element in our country since FDR said, we must control the American people by creating this divisiveness, and let people know that that everyone must make their own way, that we must not help the poor, we must not help the weak, we must control people. So I think it's not only the racists and the religious fundamentalists, but some of the super rich who have been taking us on this journey. That's just my view.
Great, thank you. And also on a side note from earlier, my mother is Indonesian. So when you mentioned you're from Indonesia, that was like kind of fun for me.
Selamat pagi.
Oh, my Bahasa isn't very bagus. But...
Mine is very small too. But I used to live in Malaysia. In Malaysia, okay, you know, we spoke Bahasa. As you know, Malaysia and Indonesia both speak Bahasa. So yeah, yes, well, good. Great culture. Indonesia is one of the largest countries in the world, right? What, fifth largest country in the world?
I know it has the largest Muslim population, but I don't know in
No,
terms of like square footage. But
I think it's the population wise, I think the fifth largest population in the world. Anyway, it's a great country, great culture. Congratulations. Thank you. Anyone else?
thank you.
Yes, Leon. Any other questions or comments? Ameena?
I think we have thank you so much for that response and that a very engaging discussion, because I know a lot of times when we bring in political inequities or political strategy into the discussion and dialogue, it becomes a little tricky. So I'm very appreciative of safe spaces where students have the opportunity to have these discussions, unfortunately, in the time that we find ourselves in. So thank you, both of you guys, for your comments on that. I see that Seth has a question, so I'm going to yield the floor to you, Seth, for now.
Hi, yeah, first I'd like to say sorry that my camera's off. The internet connection in my apartment is very shaky, so I want to like conserve bandwidth. But I was wondering, in a lot of these like your responses to questions, you've kind of touched on like division and how that influences like politics and stuff. And I was wondering, like, what do you think are like the best strategies to kind of alleviate division, like make people, I guess, more like unified?
Wow, what a great question. Thank you. So important. Yes, I like to remind people that we're human beings first. We're all the same. We're one human race. There are not many races. If you look at the science, there's only one human race, Homo sapiens sapien. And I keep reminding ourselves and each other that there's only one human race. And we're not only that, we're all earthlings. I love the word earthlings, so that my cat is an earthling, I am an earthling. The spinach is an earthling, the trees are earthlings, the minerals are earthlings, the water is earth. So we are earthlings. So we're not only all one race, we're all one bunch of earthlings. So there's just one life on earth. There's one life and there's one human race. And so I say, before I'm a male, I am human. Before I am an old person, I am human. Before I am a Christian, I am human. Before I'm a Democrat, I am human. So I keep coming back to the commonality, the oneness, that I am an earthling, that I am human, and that I love all earthlings, I love all humans, and I care. I want to do what I can so that all earthlings are safe, all humans can realize their full potential. Because I like to remind you, think of somebody, a genius like Mozart or Einstein. And as I said earlier, I think we're each geniuses. We have to discover our genius and then give it away. But some people think of all the Einsteins and Mozarts that we lose, who never realize their genius because of poverty, because of abuse, because of control, because of harm, because of being told that they're not enough, they're not adequate, they're not right. So that's why development is so important, why I'm so committed to sustainable human development, multilateral, all the countries, 193 countries working on it, but all of us activists at the grassroots level. So those are just a few ways. Another way I do it, Seth, is when I taught grad school, when I taught at NYU, I began every class with meditation. So I didn't call it meditation. I just said, let's start the class just by being still and quiet. So we would just be still and quiet and breathe together. And then, so that we were just being human. We weren't Republicans or Democrats. We were these creatures who were breathing and sitting in quiet silence and stillness. And so, and then I would ask people questions. For 30 minutes, we would talk, and then only then I would give a talk, just a 20-minute talk. And then we would discuss my talk. Then we would go to lunch. This was when I would teach all day, 6 hours in a day. And when we came back from lunch, we had a group dance. So, and can you imagine dancing in college or graduate school? So we did dances from other various cultures, group dances, circle dances. Why would I want people to dance? What happens when you dance? You're no longer a Republican or a Democrat. You're a human being. You're an animal. You're a body. You're moving. You're moving this way and that to the music. You're moving to the music, and you move your hands and your feet. And so dancing, it is a way. That's why I call my book Essays on the One Dance, because there is only one dance. There's just one life. There's one mystery. There's one consciousness. And so I invite the students to dance together. Some loved it, some felt awkward, but then people got to like it. And so every class we would dance after lunch. So that's another way, getting people to be bodies, not just minds or belief systems. We get trapped in ideologies. We get trapped in concepts, get trapped in ideas. So we need to keep it, bringing people back to their body, their heart, their relationships, their families, earth, nature. So those are just a few ways. What about you? How do you do it?
I would say usually just kind of getting people to like relate to each other and like their things like everyone has in common is usually the most like what I think of. I really liked your approach. It was very like creative.
Yes, I like what you just said. It reminded me when I used to do symposia, bring people together, like in Jamaica, for example, when I was with a nonprofit, we had a national symposium. And I insisted that we have a very diverse group. We had some poor villagers, some government officials, wealthy, middle class, different parties, different religions. So if you could get people in the same room to listen to each other, see each other, hear each other. So I love what you said. It's so important to ask people questions and get people to meet. Some people have never met a person who's different, Maybe they're shocked. They say, I've never met, a Hindu. So get a Hindu in the room, talk, find out that if I'm a Hindu, I'm a human being and I love my family and I love life. So I loved what you said, the commonalities, and see that we're all human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. We all are the same. We're same human race, and we have to remind ourselves that each day. At this point, keeping in mind that it's 11:55, Mr. Work, I would like to open the floor to you for you to ask questions that you may have for our students or myself or our audience.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to go back to my earlier question. When you think of the year 2050, what are your greatest hopes and dreams? With what is the greatest possibility that could be real in 2050? Anybody? What would that be for you? What is one of your hopes or dreams for the year 2050?
I can start. That we are kinder as people, as humans.
Wonderful. Wow. And yes. And then we could ask later, and how were those from 2021 to 2050? What happened to help us become kinder? 2021, 2022, 2023. We'll come back to that. But to be kinder in 2050, human beings are kinder to each other. I love that. Thank you. Anyone else? What is one of your hopes or dreams for the year 2050?
I hope to see more like undeveloped countries have more equality with them. I know like I'm Kenyan and when I went to Kenya, I saw like how different my life would be if I was still to be in Kenya. And especially with the pandemic, I really worried about how my family was doing back in Kenya because they probably wouldn't have like all the access and abilities and like opportunities that I have here, like with the vaccines and such. So I really hope to see like more equality and like to see more progress and advancement with undeveloped countries.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, CD. So-called developing countries in 2050 there is more equality and development and possibility. I'm sorry, I heard someone speak. Go ahead.
I believe from the audience, we have Doha Mati. Doha, would you like to have the floor? Okay, we will come back to Doha. Go ahead, Mr. Work.
Oh, there's Doha. She's.
Hi.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me. I guess in 2050, I would hope that the world is still running because with everything that we see right now, it kind of seems like we're running out of things instead of running towards a future. And so, creating sustainability and really working together, like Ameena said, being like creating kindness between each other and finding that resiliency that we have as human beings, that's what I'd hope to see in 30 years from now, hopefully. And thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you for your vision. Yes, a sustainable future because there are many dark scenarios for the future, right? So I thank you for your hope and dream that you will help create with your life. Thank you for who you are in your life. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if that's those are just in 2050, human beings will be kinder to each other. The developing countries will have much more prosperity and hope, and their poverty will be relieved in so-called developing countries. And the world will still be here. We'll be running and we'll have a sustainable world. So if that's our vision of 2050, between 2021 and 2050, what could block us from achieving that? What could block us from what could be in the middle of 2021 and 2050 that could block us from achieving kindness, sustainability, and eradicating poverty?
I'd say probably in a very broad term, to give in to the assumption that somebody else is going to take care of our problems.
Ah, okay. That someone else will take care of that. The politician, somebody, don't worry about it. So somebody else will take care. That would block us. Great. Anyone else? Anyone else? What could block us from achieving our vision?
Doha has mentioned in the chat box identity divisions.
Okay, very good. Identity divisions, where people are trapped in their small self, their small identity, that this is me. Very good. Identity divisions. Anyone else? Another block? Those are two big ones.
I think that it's also important to note that the wealthy people are the ones with the most power, influence, and resources. So given the rate, like how the proportion of how many people on this planet are impoverished means that that portion of people also are too preoccupied or unable to make change as well. So I feel like if we focus on poverty, we can at least basically like add to the number of people who want to make change.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, let's come back to, so here we are in 2021. We want to move toward a kinder world, a more sustainable world, a world where poverty is eradicated. We could be blocked by thinking someone else will do it, by identity divisions will separate us, or the wealthy will not be generous. So what are some actions that could deal with those blocks and move us toward our vision? Say we're here in 2021, we want to move to 2050, we want to deal with the blocks that somebody else could do it, identity divisions, and so on. What are some actions that could move us from today to that future? What can we do?
Mr. Work, we have a comment. Jawad, one of our audience members, has mentioned investing money and time to build cooperation and building healthier relationships with each other.
Wonderful. Okay, investing too much time, too much money and time on competition. Okay, so that's another block. Okay, good. Thank you. So think about that block also, that too much money and time is given to competition and staying ahead rather than cooperation and building healthy relationships with one another. Thank you. So that's an obstacle. Thank you. So what can we do these next 30 years to achieve our vision and deal with those blocks? What can you and I do? Yes, Marielis.
First step would be creating awareness. And then just like you did with the questions at the beginning, more and more people will start questioning their lifestyles, questioning how to decrease the gap between the upper class and, bottom of, the wealth, whatever. And then from there, I don't know, I need some more experience.
Excellent. So creating awareness, so important. Helping people wake up, to be aware, to see what's going on, and then to question the way things are. We often think things are the way they are because they have to be this way. No, they can change like that, right? Think about the collapse of communism, and so on. All the change can happen very rapidly. It can take centuries, or it can be in a second. So I love that. Creating awareness, questioning the present and the trends. Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? What can we do, you and I do, during these 30 years? Yes.
Building off rallying awareness and going off about how you mentioned earlier, this sort of quote unquote like hidden Mozarts, people who never get to fully realize their potential because of their circumstances. I guess, I'm sorry, the background. Just encouraging those with good ideas to step forward and to sort of pursue those ideas instead of remain silent.
Excellent. Encouraging people who have good ideas and inviting them to pursue those ideas, to have the good ideas and to pursue them. So important. Thank you. Anyone else? What can we do in the next 30 years to achieve our vision, our hopes, our dreams for this earth?
Jawad mentions in the comment box to help make decision-making processes more participatory and more inclusive.
Excellent. Excellent. Participatory and inclusive decision-making. Oh, this is music to my ears. Yeah, so important to get everyone's voice, everyone's ideas, everyone's action into the process. So participatory, and since we're talking about governance, governance is about participation, isn't it? It's how we all participate in creating the future, not just the wealthy or not just the powerful, but everyone, every human being can participate and decide in decisions that affect their future. So very, very important. We will need to be quicker and to take accountability for issues we cause, and more importantly, aim to be more proactive than reactive in our policies. Okay, Sally. We will need to be quicker and so rapid response, and to take accountability for issues. So we see an issue, we take accountability, we move quickly, aim to be more proactive. So proactive and reactive. So thinking about what could happen, that's so important to be proactive, because so many things, we think something may be good, but we don't realize all the possible consequences. Say like drilling for oil, you know, many years ago, we thought that was wonderful, that we got oil and gas from the earth. Yay, we're getting oil and gas from the earth, we're so smart. And now we say, uh-oh, it's killing us. The carbon release from the oil and gas is killing life on earth. So unintended consequences. How are we more proactive, thinking of all consequences that could happen? So being proactive, so important. You know, don't just be excited with one idea, but see what are the consequences of that idea. Excellent. Any other thoughts on actions that will create our vision?
How about looking at systems and processes and redefining them through a holistic lens?
Excellent. I would agree, very important. That's what I call whole systems thinking. You know, thinking in whole systems of the whole earth and all of humanity and all of society and all of the more we can think holistically about the human experience, the more likely we can see the interconnections, interrelations of all the issues and all the, because when I identified those 6 visions and 6 crises at the beginning, those are all interconnected, you know, just as your discussion of interconnectivity. Well, I want to thank you for your courage, you know, to help create the year 2050, you know, and what will you be? You'll just be what, 48, 50 years old? How old will you be in 2050? You know, I'll just be 130 or something, or 100 and I don't know, anyway, but you'll still be young. You'll still be, in 30 years, you'll be 48, 50, what? So then you'll have a whole other life. So thank you for daring to create year 2050. Thank you. Ameena, you are very lucky. I'm jealous of you getting to spend time with these good people.
You know, Mr. Work, that was, you know, and teaching this class and having the chance to speak to young adults has really, really helped me formalize my own understanding of where I want my future to take me. And as I mentioned with you briefly before, you know, after teaching this class and the semester isn't even over, I've decided that I do want to spend more time in academics, and I do want to come back to, you know, teaching multiple courses a semester and make that the majority of my career. So, and it is just so refreshing and so empowering to be able to have these discussions. And as my students know, and especially with the UN Experiential Fellows know, you know, we don't follow a traditional syllabus, nor do we follow a traditional textbook, quizzes, and exam methodology in my courses. It's more being able to engage in conversations. And that alone, I think it's so important because, as you've mentioned, each of us has a voice that is very important. We all bring value to any discussion, to our space around us. And that really helps us navigate what our next steps as humans are, right? In our relationship with our space. So I'm a believer of that. And I'm very fortunate to be able to practice that, or to help practice that in some small capacity that I can. At this point, I would like to open the floor for comments. Not so much questions, just comments from our audience. Feel free to unmute yourself and speak if you have comments.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Work. And I see in you one part of the inspiration that I'm sure Ameena shares with us on a regular basis. So thank you. Gratitude. I'll keep that in mind. Every piece of advice that you gave.
Mr. Work, would you like to leave us with a few words?
Oh, I think gratitude. Thank you, Maria. I am so full of gratitude to Ameena for inviting me to be with you, and to you each for being who you are, being in this class, being in this dialogue, being on this journey. I look at you, I think of, I would love to, as I said, I'm jealous. I would love to spend more time with you and talk to you about Kenya, CD. I've been to Kenya several times. I'd love to talk to you about Kenya. I'd love to talk to you about Indonesia and so on. So I just want to say how grateful I am to Ameena and to you each, and how I'm counting on you. I really mean that. I am looking forward to your discovering who you are and being who you are on behalf of all humanity and the whole planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Work. Thank you so much for this very insightful, very zen conversation. You courageously tackled concepts of political extremism in our conversation today. We brought in economic inequity and cultural differences, especially given the times that our society finds itself in time of chaos, in time of crisis, if we are allowed to say that. And you also, you helped us commit today's dialogue as a space to talk about the role that we have as individuals, as activists in our own communities, in our own spaces, in creating that relationship that we have with our world, and journeying into the future. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you so much for sharing with us this development approach of sustainability from your experience and your expertise that are rooted around compassion. And I think that is just as we requested, our fellows before, to have that sort of a connection with you. If you would be so kind, I can share your email address directly with our students if they should have any more questions or comments, or would like to connect with you with your permission.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you to our lovely audience. Thank you for spending your Thursday afternoon with us, and everybody have a wonderful day, rest of your day and rest of your weekend. Take care.